was an amazing play because it was feminism by stealth.
Yeah.
Because people came along and thought that they were going to get a fantastic romp about middle-aged women doing burlesque, which it was. And to this day, I've never found it more difficult to perform on a stage than every single night with Doon McKeithen. But what the play was looking at was what it was for a woman to bring a child into the world and to let her go. And there were these fantastic audiences which were very balanced. There were men and women, and also a generational cross-section. So you had mothers and daughters coming along, and you could see, and talking to people afterwards, the mothers would go, "Oh, that's what it's like for my daughter," and the daughters would go, "Oh, that's what it's like for my mum."
I feel really bad now.
But it was a real dialogue across generations and across the sexes.
Sort of last memory of that play, the thing that I always remember is on the very last day I came in to see the last performance, and I spoke to Alan Williams, who's a fantastic actor. It was a real privilege to have him in the play. He said after the matinee he had been chased down the road by a group of kids who just wanted to talk to him about the play, which is amazing. They just wanted to speak to him about it. They'd liked it so much. And then I sat down in my seat and I was watching the play, and at the interval this bloke turned to this woman behind me and went, "What do you think of the play?" And she said, "I've been coming here for 10 years and this is the worst play I've ever seen." And she just proceeded to destroy the play. And I started fiddling with my ears so I couldn't hear anything. I was doing this, so that I couldn't hear it. But at the time, it's always painful if someone says they don't like it. But actually, on reflection, I thought that's not a bad place for a play to be.
And what was great is that you come on with a water balloon and you can feel the whole audience smile but get worried, especially the really posh people who've had their hair done. And you can really feel like the power of having a water balloon on stage was incredible, and just throwing that wherever I wanted and even getting the audience members. They loved it. They hated it, but they loved it.
We sat here just before it opened, and I think the refurb had gone on for about 3 years. And Ian Rickson was here, and there were 3 actors in it: Brian Cox and Brona Gallagher and myself, and we sat on the stage in lighting a little bit like this, and we all had to make a wish for the newly opened court, and so it was really, really special. We lit a candle. It was really, 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 really beautiful. I was the very first actor to stand on the new refurbed stage, so I'm very, very proud of that.
Well, when we did Posh, we did it. It was amazing. The play itself was exciting enough to do, but we did it we performed on the night of the 2010 general election, and that was unbelievable. The atmosphere that created in the theatre that night when people had voted that day. And okay, it wasn't overtly about politics, but it was, the new government potentially was going to be the sort of people who'd been around that table in that play. So that was very exciting. And then going out into the bar and following the results as they came in for the election and staying, and I think they kept the bar open until sort of 3 or 4 in the morning. And that was just thrilling experience. So to do something that was so live and so sort of fizzing with energy of something completely current was amazing.
And the first play that I worked on here was the Heretic by Richard Bean, and it was really controversial. It was quite sort of it was amazing. I just found it incredible that they were doing this play, because it had some quite sort of almost politically kind of right-wing sort of sentiments in terms of where climate change sits. That was the big kind of topical issue, but just the way it's been politicised. It didn't cater to who you think the audience of the Royal Court is. It challenged them, and I remember in all the Q&As, people were really angry and really kind of they were being really challenged. Their whole identity and their belief structure and everything was being kind of being kind of eroded, and I just thought that was so great, because you don't want to keep telling the same thing to the same people who are going to agree. You know, you just need to challenge everybody.
I was on stage dressed as Princess Diana in The Queen and I was 7 months pregnant, so my skirt had to be let out every sort of week. But I was doing a great job of kind of holding it in, and so I was on stage, and a stage manager walked onto the stage and said, ladies and gentlemen, would you please evacuate the building? And I thought, this is brilliant, this is a fantastic prank. So we all filed out and stood in the middle of Sloane Square. So me, dressed as Princess Diana with my kind of red Chanel suit on, surrounded by audience who were talking to me a bit like Diana, was one of the weirdest and most surreal moments of people actually asking me questions as if I was Di.
I had a scene in Off the Ends where it's basically a nude scene. So I get up out of bed and I'm naked. And in rehearsals, obviously I'd never done it in rehearsals. The first time I did it was on our first night, and I didn't realise how scared I was. I think I got used to kind of, I don't know, you know you have to do it, but you're not really taking it on board, the severity of it or how huge it is. And when I eventually got there, I kind of had a meltdown backstage, but I eventually came out and did it, and it was a liberating experience, to say the least. I enjoyed doing it.
When I had to do something I'd never done before, which was go in front of an audience and sing sort of quite classically and operatically, and this is coming from somebody who just only sung in the shower by herself before. So even though it was a tiny thing, it was an experience that I was literally jumping off a cliff every night, and it was only a tiny part of what the experience of the play was.
Maybe the first night of Death and the Maiden, the opening preview of Death and the Maiden at the theatre upstairs, when we worked so raw. We'd only had 3 weeks to rehearse, and a lot of that time had been spent on restoring the play to its original form. Very little time to actually put it on its feet or rehearse it. And it was about such extremes, or certainly the character I was playing was about such extremes. You know, she was a woman who'd been previously detained and tortured, and I felt as an actress I was up against my real limits.
In the rehearsals for Mr. Colpert, Richard Wilson had said to Adam Godley and I, who had to get naked at the very end and weep, it's hard enough crying, but let alone be naked and crying for the last image of the play. He'd said, look, we won't rehearse that unless everybody's naked in the room. So if you want to rehearse naked, otherwise we'll do it at the tech. And so the tech came, and of course nobody had wanted to rehearse it naked before, so it's our first time of taking our clothes off, taking our clothes off, naked, weeping in a spotlight. Come on, I'm just like, please, can you now go to black? And it seemed just like an absolute age. And luckily, they did shorten it, but that was a frightening moment.
I suppose when we did Wig Out here, there was a great atmosphere here. It was a real sort of energy. There was, we were doing this fantastic play by Terrell Alvin McCraney about a very sort of unknown sort of subculture in New York, in America in general, where the Vogue dance came from, and this sort of underground culture, gay culture, which was utterly fascinating in itself, and the level of investigation that went into exploring that culture and the world around it was very typical of the work that they do here. We'd come down after the shows and there'd be sort of live performances going on in the bar, and the court didn't have to do that, but it was just a brilliant way of sort of, it was their Christmas show, so there was already a lot of celebration in the air, but it just brought, these two, otherwise sort of separate worlds together of sort of live sort of drag acts, and and mirrored what was going on in the theatre and made it even more collectively exciting, and so that was probably a proper memory. There was lots of fun had during that time.
Ashes to Ashes, a very difficult play, the new play then by Pinter, which was like disappearing into another world. I can't be more articulate than that. you just have to sink yourself into that kind of writing. And there's almost nothing you can do but trust it. And that's an extraordinary and almost blissful experience when it works.
I think the first night at Sucker Punch will always be like, I think the first and last night at Sucker Punch are just like massive moments in my life. Dominic took over and it was all crazy and like what happened, and then like everyone was like, we want to do it, but the person with the most lines has to make the decision, yeah? And so everyone, I was 21, so everyone just looked at me. Everyone said yes, yeah, I'll do it. And then everyone looked at me, because if I say no, then we're not doing it. I was like, what expect me to say? And I just was like, I'm not gonna say, yeah, I'm gonna say I'm not scared. I just said I'm not scared of anything. And then we went and did it. And literally everyone was there, and it was just this, it was a weird moment. And it's when we came out, I remember me and Anthony always talk about when we came out to the bar, and we was at the top of the bar, and then everyone clapped.
I did Far Away by Carol Churchill in 2000, and that was amazing, an amazing production to be part of when I look back on it. We were talking earlier about short plays. Well, it only lasted 3/4 of an hour, and some people got very cross, but it was 3/4 of an hour of powerful, emotional and intellectual meat, and it was just jaw-droppingly good, I think.
It was my first job, so I didn't know anything different, but just happy and fun. And Posh, sure, was about 10 guys getting pissed every night, so you couldn't help but have fun on that stage, and we all got on, everyone got on. It was just fun. It was a fun place to be. It was an exciting place to be, because we knew we were doing something that other people were finding exciting.
From other memories that stick out was the first night of Operation Bad Apple, which I was in, because I was a big fan of Gordon Newman, and I wrote to Max and said, by any chance, if there's a small part I'll do anything for Gordon Newman. And I played the police commissioner, and the evening they were threatening litigation and all sorts of things. The theatre was packed with lawyers. And then Max, on the opening night, Max said, I think it would be a good idea to leave the house lights on. Which, of course, just buttock clenching time. It was absolutely... and here was this theatre, and I had to just walk on and start talking. I still shiver at the thought.